Hello everyone, welcome to my channel Bold and Beautiful. Today, will Spencer no way believe the history could physically walk back into your life, until the moment he opened the door and saw him. The man standing on the doorstep wasn't just a foreigner asking for directions or a delivery gone wrong. No, this was a ghost. A living, breathing memorial of a chapter Will had spent times persuading himself was closed ever. His blood ran cold as recognition slammed into him with brutal force. Dylan's father hadn't just returned. He'd arrived at the worst possible moment. "Will," the man said calmly, as if they'd spoken just history rather of a decade ago. "We need to talk." Will couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. His mind contended through recollections he'd buried, late nights, police enchantresses, rumored pledges, and a alarmed youthful Dylan soliciting him not to let everything fall piecemeal. Will had prepared himself for Dylan's demons, for Electra's wrathfulness, for public judgment. But this was commodity additional entirely. "You have some whimwams coming then," Will eventually said, forcing his voice to stay steady. Dylan, who had been half down the stairs, set when he saw the man. The color drained from his face. "Dad!" That single word changed everything. Because suddenly, Will understood why his stomach had dropped the moment he saw him. This wasn't just Dylan's father. This was the man responsible for the chain response that destroyed Dylan's knowledge, fractured his future, and nearly took Will down with him. "You told me you were dead," Dylan rumored, voice shaking. The man, his father, let out an earnest chortle. "I told you what you demanded to believe." Will gripped his fists. "You don't get to rewrite history." "Oh, but history's exactly why I'm then," the man replied, stepping outside without assignation. "And before you ask, yes, I know Electra's out of city." Will strengthened. "How do you?" "I know everything," the man said. "I always have." The pressure in the house was suffocating. Dylan's casket tensed as recollections swamped back, his father's cold eyes, his insolvable norms, the fear that had followed him far and wide. He'd spent times trying to escape that shadow, only to realize it had no way truly left. "What do you want?" Dylan asked still. His father looked at Will rather. "I want answers. And perhaps a reckoning." Unknown to them, across city, Ivy Forrester had just returned beforehand from a meeting and decided to stop by Will's place. She hadn't told anyone. She hadn't planned to get involved. But fate, as always in Los Angeles, had other ideas. When Ivy pulled into the driveway and saw Dylan's auto situated outdoors, she lowered. Electra was out of city, everyone knew that. Why was Dylan still there? Curiosity dragged at her, and before she could talk herself out of it, she walked up to the door. Inside, Will's voice was low and critical. "You can't just show up like this. Not after everything you did." Dylan's father scowled. "Funny. That's exactly what I said when you showed up times ago, asking me to vanish." Ivy sat. "Vanish?" She leaned closer, heart pounding. "You were abusing him," Will snapped. "I did what I had to do." Dylan goggled at Will in shock. "You went to him for me." Will exhaled sluggishly. "I know I wanted you to know." Ivy's breath caught. Also, she pushed the door open. The room went silent. All three men turned as Ivy stepped outside, eyes wide, surveying the scene, Will standing far too close to Dylan, pressure thick between them, and a foreigner whose presence radiated imminence. "What's going on then?" Ivy asked precisely. Will felt the ground shift beneath his bases. "Ivy, this isn't. This looks exactly like what it is," she intruded. "Electra leaves city, and suddenly you two are having secret meetings." Dylan stepped back incontinently. "It's not like that." "Also explain it," Ivy said. Her aspect landed on Dylan's father. "Who are you?" The man smiled. "I'm family." Ivy's eyes snapped back to Will. "You didn't suppose this would get out." Will ran a hand through his hair. "I wasn't hiding anything. I was guarding someone." "That's your reason for everything," Ivy shot back. "And it always costs someone differently." Dylan's father chortled vocally. "She's sharper than she looks." Ivy bristled. "I don't watch who you are, but you don't get to sit then and judge." "Oh, I'm not judging, the man replied. I'm observing. And what I see is fascinating. Will stepped forward, furious. You're leaving. Now. The man looked at Dylan. You see? He still thinks he can control the narrative. Dylan's voice cracked. You don't get to do this. You don't get to come back and tear my life piecemeal. I formally did that, his father said coldly. I'm just then to remind you who you are. Ivy's stomach turned. Commodity was veritably wrong then, far deeper than covetousness or secretiveness. Will, she said vocally, you need to tell me the verity. Will dithered. And in that pause, Ivy realized the worst part. There were still effects he hadn't told anyone. Electra was long hauls down, blissfully ignorant that her relationship was unraveling in real time. Will eventually spoke. Dylan's father was reported dead times ago. I helped make that be. Ivy's eyes widened. You what? To cover Dylan, Will said forcefully. From abuse. From blackmail. From a man who would have destroyed him. Dylan's father laughed darkly. And look how well that worked. Ivy took a step back, overwhelmed. This is insane. And illegal, the man added easily. Which brings me to my coming point. Will's heart sank. You want plutocrat. I want influence, the man replied. Your family. Your character. Your future. Dylan shook his head. You won't hurt him. His father's eyes softened. Just for alternate. I formally have. Ivy felt sick. She looked between Will and Dylan, suddenly understanding why Electra had always felt like she was contending with commodity unseen. This isn't about fellowship, Ivy rumored. This is trauma. Bonded trauma. Will looked at Dylan, guilt submerging his face. I no way meant for it to go this far. And yet it always does, Ivy said still. Enchantresses echoed noiselessly in the distance, nearly differently, someone additional's problem but they felt like a warning. Dylan's father stood. I'll be in touch. Don't make me lament coming back. When the door closed behind him, the house felt concave. Ivy turned sluggishly to Will. Electra deserves to know. Will's casket tensed. Not like this. She's out of city, Ivy said. And when she comes back, she's walking into a war zone. Dylan looked at Will, fear and fidelity colliding in his eyes. I'll leave. Will shook his head. No. That's what he wants. Ivy exhaled sprucely. You see and keep choosing each other and awaiting the world not to notice. Silence. Eventually, Will said the words that changed everything. I don't know how to fix this. Ivy met his aspect. You start by telling the verity, before someone differently does. Miles down, Electra's phone buzzed with a communication she hadn't read yet. The moment Dylan's father walked out, the silence he left before was nearly louder than his presence had been. Will stood firm in the middle of the living room, casket tight, palpitation racing. Ivy's words echoed in his cognizance. Electra deserves to know, and for the first time since this agony began, Will wasn't sure he could overrun the verity presently. Dylan broke the silence first. His not pretending. Will turned sprucely. I know. Ivy crossed her arms, her eyes sharp and searching. You helped fake his death, she said sluggishly, still trying to wrap her head around it. Do you have any idea how explosive that's if it gets out? I wasn't allowing about consequences, Will admitted. I was allowing about saving a sprat. Dylan squinched at the word sprat. I'm not that spooked sprat presently. Will softened. You were when it signified. Ivy shook her head. And now you're all paying for it. Upstairs, the house creaked as if it, too, was hearkening. Ivy eventually exhaled, rubbing her tabernacles. Electra can't walk into this eyeless. If she hears it from anyone additional, especially him, it's over. Dylan swallowed. She formally hates me. That's not true, Will said snappily. She resents me, Dylan corrected. And now she'll see me as the reason your life could buckle. Ivy met Dylan's eyes. You're not the villain then. But you're standing in the blast zone. That night, Will slightly slept. Every sound outside felt like a trouble. Every headlight passing the window, every phone vibration. At 3 a.m., his phone buzzed with a textbook from an unknown number. Tick. Tock. Will closed his eyes. Across the country, Electra sat in her hostel room gaping at her phone. She had felt it all day, that apprehension you get when commodity is wrong and no quantum of distance can quiet it. She hadn't heard from Will since morning. No goodnight textbook. No consolation. Just silence. She telephoned his number. Straight to voicemail. Electra's jaw tensed. Back in Los Angeles, Ivy returned the coming morning, unfit to shake the feeling that she'd stepped into commodity far bigger than she could control. She set up Will in the kitchen, coffee untouched, eyes bloodshot. "You look like hell," Ivy said. "Feel worse?" "Any word from him?" she asked. Will shook his head. "Just a memorial that he owns my history." Dylan entered still, having eavesdropped. "This ends when I face him." "No," Will snapped. "That's exactly what he wants." "What choice do we have?" Dylan demanded. "His coming for you." Ivy fitted. "His coming for influence." Which means exposure. The word hung in the air. "I won't let Electra get hurt," Will said forcefully. Ivy raised an eyebrow. "Also you need to tell her." Moment. As if summoned by fate, Will's phone chimed. "Electra." Will dithered only a alternate before answering. "Hey. Where have you been?" Electra asked, skipping amenities. Will swallowed. Effects got complicated. "That's funny," she said coldly. "So did my flight. I'll be home tonight." Will's heart dropped. "Electra." "I'll see you soon," she said, also hung up. Ivy's eyes widened. "She's coming back beforehand." Will jounced sluggishly. "This is it." Hours latterly, Electra walked through the frontal door, wallet still in hand, and stopped dead. Dylan stood in the living room. "So Ivy wasn't imagining effects," Electra said still. Dylan incontinently stepped back. "I can leave." "No," Electra replied, eyes locked on Will. "I want answers." Will took a deep breath. "You earned them." Electra set her bag down, arms crossing protectively over her casket. "Start talking." Before Will could speak, the doorbell chimed. Everyone sat. Will didn't have to look through the peephole to know who it was. Dylan's father stood outdoors, smiling like he'd just won. "Did you invite him?" Electra asked sprucely. "No," Will said. "But he invited himself." Electra's aspect hardened. "Also didn't open the door." But the man knocked again, harder this time. "Electra," he called. "I suppose we should eventually meet." Her blood ran cold. "He knows my name." Will stepped between her and the door. "You don't have to hear this." "Yes," she said forcefully. "I do." The door opened. Dylan's father stepped outside, eyes incontinently locking on Electra. "You must be the woman he chose." Electra didn't blink. "And you must be the man who refuses to stay dead." His smile widened. "Sharp. I like her." "Get to the point," Will said. The man soughed theatrically. "I'm done waiting. I want what I'm owed, or everything comes out." Electra turned to Will, fury and treason flashing across her face. What exactly is he talking about? Will met her aspect. "I helped make him vanish." Silence. Electra laughed formally, right and earnest. "You committed a felony." "I saved a life," Will shot back. "And risked everyone additionals," she said. Dylan stepped forward. "This is my fault." His father scoffed. "You were no way strong enough to handle the verity." Electra snapped. "You abused him." The man lifted his head. "And yet then he is still running." "Enough," Will roared. "You're done controlling this." The man signed. "Also call the police." Electra didn't vacillate. She reached for her phone. Will goggled at her. "Electra, I'm not living in fear," she said. "Not for you. Not for him." Enchantresses wailed in the distance, closer this time. Dylan's father cursed under his breath and bolted, but officers were formally pulling up. Chaos erupted. Binds snapped shut. Dylan's father was dragged down, crying pitfalls and pledges of vengeance. When it was over, the house felt empty again. Electra turned sluggishly to Will. You prevaricated to me. Over and over. I was hysterical, he admitted. She jounced. That makes it worse. Dylan spoke still. I'll go. For real this time. Electra looked at him, not with wrathfulness, but with sadness. You should have been defended. Not hidden. Will's voice broke. Do and leave. Dylan smiled noiselessly. You saved me formally. Let me save you now. He walked out. Electra watched him go, also turned back to Will. This doesn't end fairly, she said. But it ends actually. Will jounced, gashes in his eyes. I'll spend the rest of my life making this right. Electra dithered, also reached for his hand. Also start by no way choosing secrets over me again. Outside, Dylan faded into the night, free at last, but ever changed. The door clicked shut behind Dylan, and the sound echoed through Will's house like a final verdict. No bone moved. No bone spoke. It felt wrong to indeed breathe later everything that had just happened. Will stood frozen, gaping at the door Dylan had just walked through, as if sheer restraint might make him renew it. His casket pained in a way he couldn't put into words, relief that Dylan was eventually free, mixed with crushing guilt for letting it come to this. Electra broke the silence. You didn't just cover him, she said still. You came his guard. Will turned to her, eyes glassy. I didn't know how additional to help. That's the problem, Electra replied. You no way asked for help. You decided alone, and you took everyone down with you. Ivy shifted uncomfortably hard, feeling like a substantiation to commodity too intimate to intrude. Still, she spoke. Electra's right. This kind of fidelity it can turn dangerous. Will let out a bitter laugh. Tell that to the interpretation of me who watched a sprat blench every time his father raised his voice. Electra's expression softened just a bit. I'm not saying you were wrong to watch. I'm saying you were wrong to lie. That landed. Will jounced sluggishly. I know. Outside, Dylan stood on the sidewalk, hands shoved into his jacket pockets, gaping up at the dark sky. For the first time in times, he felt untethered. No pitfalls, no caching, no walls to press his reverse against. And yet, the freedom felt intimidating. His phone buzzed. A communication from an unknown number. You suppose this is over? Dylan exhaled sprucely and deleted it without replying. He was done running, but that didn't mean the history was done with him. Back outside, Electra picked up her wallet and dragged it toward the stairs. Will watched, fear creeping in. You're leaving? He asked. I need space, she said simply. And so do you. Electra, please. She stopped and turned. I love you. That's why this hurts so important. But I don't know who you're when you're drowning in guilt, Will. And I ain't fix that for you. Ivy watched Will's face deteriorate and felt a stitch of sympathy. I'll go, she said gently. Call me if you need anything. When Ivy left, the house fell silent again, this time, unbearably so. That night, Will sat alone on the settee, replaying every choice that had led him then. He'd believed fidelity meant no way letting go. He was starting to understand that occasionally, fidelity meant knowing when to stop holding on. Across city, Electra checked into a hostel rather of going home. She goggled at her reflection in the glass, slightly fating herself. She'd fought for honesty, demanded verity, and now that she had it, she wasn't sure what to do with the wreckage it left before. Her phone buzzed. A textbook from Ivy. I'm proud of you. Not everyone chooses verity when it hurts. Electra soughed, codifying back. I don't feel stalwart. I feel broken. At Forrester Creations the coming morning, whispers spread presto. Someone had seen police outside Will's house. Someone differently claimed Dylan's father had been arrested. No bone had the full story, but everyone had an opinion. Rich possessed Ivy near the design room. You were there, weren't you? Ivy dithered. Yes. Is it bad? He asked. She met his eyes. It's worse than gossip, but better than silence. Meanwhile, Will showed up at work looking like a man who hadn't slept in days. Katie noticed incontinently. You okay? She asked gently. No, Will admitted.